Hey guys, Asoka here, and I have a very special guest. Today we are talking to Tom Seelbinder, who is the head of customer success and product at ModelMatch. I butchered that. It's an easy word too, and I butchered it.
It's a two-word brand.
It's a two-word brand. Look at that, and I totally messed it up. So Tom, great to see you. Obviously, we've known each other for some years now. And you have such an interesting background of kind of where you came from, where you are, not just, physically, but mentally, where you are in your life. And I just thought you'd be someone great to talk to and for the world to finally hear your story, Tom. So let's go back to the beginning. I know I'm talking a lot so far, but you are head of customer success and product, but take me back to 10 12 years ago. How did you first get into the door? What were you doing, and how did you kind of first get started in this world?
So I think it goes back a little bit further than that, but I think I was when I first met you, I think I was 17.
Yep.
And I think I was a junior in high school. I was at my second high school, and I was checked out, right? Like I was totally ready to bail. School wasn't for me. I had a decent amount of friends. I think I knew quite a few people. I was probably there more for social hour kind of thing, and it was started getting really old, right? And I was so focused on other things at the time that school started to take a big back seat, and so I think I was probably 15 and a half when I was kind of so pretty early on. And I had a meeting, and I met this lady, Sue, who turned out to be Sue Huff, and she was the discipline principal at the high school that I was going to. And she, obviously when the conversation comes around that, I'm planning on not returning to school anymore, right? This big major life decision that I'm about to make here, totally on my own, like totally focused on something else. She had said, well, I think paraphrasing that meeting, she basically said, what do you plan on doing for work? Because, if you want to go out and you're in your band and you're skateboarding all over town and you're doing all these things, what are you going to do for money? Like, what are your goals, right? And I think I probably gave her some half-winded answer about, I'm going to go work at Big Five or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And she said, well, my son owns this technology company. And they, sometimes they hire students from the school, and you should go talk to him. You should go and do this interview. And I know this guy over there, Garrison Draper. You should go meet this guy. And maybe you'll like it, Tom, right? And maybe that'll be that. And this is the first time I actually met Sue. It was in this conversation. And so I think I kind of did it. I accepted just because I kind of wanted to just end the conversation, right? So I'll go and do that. Whatever. I'll go do that, and for some reason I did. For some reason I continued that, that I'm going to go do this, and I did. And I went for the interview, and you have to kind of go back to where I was, right? We were skateboarding all day. That's what we did. We filmed ourselves. We would go from, Orange County, LA County, San Diego County. I was in a punk rock band kind of thing. And so you can kind of starting to imagine my attire, right? And I think I walked into that interview with the mindset of like, I'm going to walk out of here without this job. Like, that's what's going to happen. Like, there's no way no way this is going to happen, right? I have holes in my shoes. Gosh only knows what I was wearing that day. And I met Garrison, and I met Bob Huff, who was Sue's husband. And I don't really know exactly what happened from a mindset perspective afterwards, but I kind of just kept going along, right? And I left there, and I kind of thought, there's no way they're calling me back, right? I think I always kind of joke, and I tell this story to some people, but I'm pretty sure Garrison asked me, why do you want this job, right? Just why do you want this job? It's this 15, almost 16-year-old kid kind of thing, right? And I think he was just kind of trying to apply pressure. And I think I told him I just wanted money. Like, that's what I was there for, right? I'm bombing this interview, right? And on purpose, I'm like sabotaging my own interview. And I think he called me back like 2 days later and was like, oh, we want you to come back in. And I ended up getting the job. And that was for Kirk, right? Kirk was Sue's son. And And that was when I started my career, right? At this point, I think when I just started, I think I had just turned 16, and I would come in every day after school I worked 3-hour shifts Monday through Friday from 1 to 4-ish or whatever, 1 to 5-ish, sometimes. And they would sit a stack of paper order forms on my desk. I had a little computer, and I would sit there, and they were order forms from the conferences, right? Where we were selling the product. And manually, I would enter each order every day for 3 hours. And I would always hear everybody else, because on the floor, right? I was in the pit with everybody, and I would always hear the support staff or whoever, the billing team. Even I was sat right across the hall from where the developers were. They had a really big development team, and I would hear all these people talking on the phone, right? Talking to customers or whatever, and I would just be sitting there like, gee, when's 5 o'clock coming, entering these orders, right? But I would be listening, and it was such a unique environment, I think, for me at the time, being kind of where I was, and then not having a job before, right? But then suddenly be kind of thrust into this very, it was a relaxed environment, but an office environment, right? This very rigid, to me at the time, environment where you have cubicles and you have computers and you have a mail room just for the mail, right? And like, it was weird to me. That was unique, and I'd never been in that environment before, and I started to somewhat like be consumed by it, right? Like I enjoyed now, like, oh, I want to go do this, right? Like I want to go to the office, right? And I eventually graduated from entering orders all day to being in the mailroom and shipping, right? And we would ship things out. That was back when you wanted to install a program, you had a CD and you put the CD in. And we would ship those out, right? And then we'd do the incoming mail and the outgoing mail, and I would still do my orders, of course. I always compounded my work. I didn't move away from it. And eventually I met you, right? This was about the same time. We had moved offices and we were hiring some people, growing that side of things. And that's where I met you. I think by this time I'm probably 17 now. And I ended up graduating high school. And I think the idea came along of like, well, now you have to go to college, right? Wow, I just got done with, I barely made the 12 years. Now you want me to go like some more, right? Like I'm already done with that. Like, and I had this mindset of like, I just want to work, right? Like this is what I want to focus on.
Let me ask you this, Tom. So now that you've been working there for a little bit, you took Sue up on her offer, you got the job, you're doing the job, did you kind of notice you changing kind of mentally from the crowd you were hanging out with, and sort of your outlook on, jobs and kind of career at that point? Were things starting to change for you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I was the only one I knew that I hung around with that even had a job. So it was weird even to say like after school, right, I'm going to work. Right? I'm not have a job. I was kind of the only one that did. And that's where kind of, I think, I enjoyed more or less being in the office and doing all that versus whatever else was happening at the time. So yeah, I think during this very short period of time from 15, call it 16 to, 18 years old, when I first got on the phone, right, is when, major transformation, I think, was happening on this level.
Do you remember like getting on the phone for the first time and like starting to do calls and things, and what that was like for you?
Yeah, so actually, it was funny because they wanted me to be on the phone. That was kind of like the next level, right? Data entry, mail room, and now you got to be on the phone, right? And I did not want to be on the phone. And it was, we were high volume at the time, inbound and outbound, and that was super scary, right? I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do that, and I was very hesitant about it. And at the end of the day, it was basically like, look, you got to get on the phone. It's the next step, and you just have to do it. You have to focus, and you just pick up the phone, kind of thing, right? And I remember Garrison told me that they're not going to reach through the phone and grab you, man. Like, don't be scared. Just pick up the phone and have the conversation. And of course, he put me on the worst phone calls that you could ever have. to take.
That's
right?
right.
Which was those escalated billing calls.
Yep.
And yeah, and that was the first phone call I think I ever made. I think I was probably literally shaking, like, oh wow, this is nuts, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I was extremely fearful of the phone.
You conquered it, man. You excelled.
I ended up basically living on the phone from that point.
So you're on the phones now, and I guess we should clarify this. So what exactly did the company do that you worked for? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, we were a virtual telecom system, right? So I think one of the first, actually, if you go back when it was founded, one of the first virtual phone systems, right? So you have an IVR system and a dashboard to manage your account, manage your phone numbers, all that sort of stuff. And we sold to small businesses that needed a toll-free number and needed that professional sounding phone system without having to go buy a full-blown PBX system.
Awesome. Now, you're at Deltel, you are on the phones, you're doing customer service. When did you kind of like decide, okay, this is going to be my career, or did you ever decide that, or did it just sort of like it just took you there, and now this is your career?
No, I think when I said before about how it sort of started to consume me in a way, in a positive way. But I think, yeah, that just kind of became like what I did. Like, yeah, I don't think I ever made it. I think when you're 17 or 18 years old, or even younger, 16, 17 years old, when it's hard to make a career. Oh yeah, I want to like talk about toll-free numbers.
Right.
It just kind of was like, it was there and I loved doing it, and it just became what I did.
Nice. And then obviously I left at some point while we were still at Deltel. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what were the next products you worked on after the virtual phone system?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I still remember the day you left, by the way. It was very, very emotional for me. Yeah.
Was our day.
Sure. I'm sure it was.
Look at that. I remember Bob, when I went and told him, he was so cool, bro. He was like, AJ, don't even stress about this. I've been in your seat so many times where you have to like take the better opportunity. It's better for your life, better for your career. It was so cool, dude. Like such a great.
Bob was certainly like my first mentor.
Yeah.
I think, and I certainly, and Sue as well. The level of gratitude I think that I have for those people is pretty much undescribable, because without those two, and Kirk, of course, Kirk as well, that family, right, was really was able to do things for me that I don't think they really had to do, right? Like, it wasn't like expected from me, and I certainly came out of left field for me, but those people have a vibe about them, right? And an understanding about them that's very contagious, right? And yeah, so I'm not surprised when you told Bob that you were leaving, right? That there was nothing but positive around that whole decision.
Exactly.
And that next step, I think, when after you kind of left, and of course we were still doing what we were doing, but that's where I think the relationship that I had with Kirk began to elevate further as we started to explore other products and projects that Kirk wanted to focus on and kind of try to transform what we were doing and morph into something new. And so we started to take our, the idea, where you had your virtual phone system that was sort of dated in a way, and how could we bring that to more modern, modernize that even further. And so we started to, go into, the mobile space, and not just from a telecom perspective, but also on the marketing side of things as well, which still had that telecom. We never really got away from telecom, I don't think 100%. It always kind of had that intermixed.
Yeah.
And then of course still running Deltel, moving forward on that.
Is it still around, the PBNX software? Do people still use it at all?
We closed it officially, I believe earlier this year.
Gotcha. Okay. So now you guys have morphed into ModelMatch. So tell me about what you guys do, what the business is like, and what you do there.
Yeah, so well, ModelMatch actually came out of a different group entirely, and they were called Hammer House, and that's Eric Levitt and Drew Waterhouse that are currently leadership at ModelMatch, and they were a recruiting agency in the mortgage industry, financial services, and they have behind that whole process and strategy. There's a lot of methodology that comes along with that very small space, if you will. And that's where Kirk kind of came along as coming from software, saying we should take all this methodology and build a platform out of it. That way we can, other agencies or other organizations that are focused on recruiting can utilize that platform to help manage their own pipelines and build their own pipelines and all that sort of stuff. And so Kirk entered that team first as ModelMatch, and then I followed shortly after to join that team.
Nice. So, and when you started with ModelMatch, were you just doing customer support, or what else were you doing there?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I again almost kind of started from that base level. It was that early on. They were scrapping everything together, trying to build this thing up, and it was we need a sales pipeline. So go on LinkedIn and find every branch manager and every regional manager in mortgage that you can, and we'll add them to this spreadsheet, and we'll just start making calls, right? And start talking to people. So my first job at ModelMatch was actually building the sales pipeline, the first sales pipeline. And then naturally, of course, transitioned into setting up, getting the support established, which ultimately leads to, establishing what the Success platform looks like, what our strategy looks like from that perspective. And then that quickly transitioned into, driving overall vision from a product perspective and working with our developers. So there was a clear, kind of pathway, setting up the pipeline, setting up support, what does success look like, and then ultimately, how do we continue to build this product into what our, grand vision kind of is.
So you were pretty much on the ground floor of a new company, a new entity, and a new product. How do you go about kind of defining what like customer success looks like when something's so new? There's a lot of trial and error, or how do you guys kind of figure that? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I think it's there's no playbook, right, that you can reference that will tell you exactly how you can apply or how you build success for a platform that's really just getting started, right? We don't have much info in terms of what are our users thinking, what do our users even expect from us, and what does that look like? We don't have any of the real set pillars to our offering in general, right? We're kind of hitting the ground running, and we're super scrappy with what we're building, and so it's very, very loose. I think when you approach a brand new product, and the time comes to, which should be early on in the foundation, but the time comes to understand what your success program or strategy looks like, I think it's super important that you remain hyper high touch with your user base, especially as that continues to grow. I made it a point. Every single new user is going to talk to me, walk through the platform, understand what their pain points are, understand what their expectations are, and I'm going to be super hands-on with every single person so that I know exactly how to better position ourselves on this end. You can start with the basics, right? You have all the basics. Like, you got to have not only do you have to make sure that pre-close you're nice and tight with expectations and pain points and getting all that documented, but post-close, what can you do really early, right? Well, you can talk to every customer, you can walk them through the platform in regards to those pain points that you collected in the beginning, but you can talk to everybody because you don't have like thousands of users. So you have the opportunity to have a real close connection with your users. And then based on that feedback and that open channel of communication, then you can start to put the blocks together in terms of moving forward. What does our foundation look like? Because the pillars will change all the time, especially as your product grows, your team expands, capabilities get a little bit different, capacity gets different. Everything above on that top layer um, I think is very flexible and versatile. But really, it's about getting that foundation right.
And how have you been able to sort of maintain that relationship with your customers as you scale, as you guys get bigger? And are you still able? Are you just working more hours to have those touches with those customers? Have you been growing out the team, or have you kind of focused on automating more things?
Yeah, I mean, of course, naturally, the progression when you start to scale upwards is that you have to deploy more automation, right? So you can't spend an hour on the phone every day with each one of your users. This is just impossible, right? So you have to start to, and one of those pillars, I think, of success when we're talking about building the strategy is certainly time management, right? Being able to manage the time, not only for your sake, but more importantly, the customer's sake, right? And so being able to identify maybe those accounts or those users that might need a little bit more hands-on support, and I say support loosely, but hands-on guidance to get them up and running quicker, you have to be able to identify who those people are, and you have to do that pre-close. And so that's how we started to kind of manage time in terms of speaking with users, engaging with users, and then of course, yeah, deploying, more survey type questions during the onboarding process, diving deeper in the beginning so that you can gather as much information to use as that relationship grows. If that, maybe I got off base a little bit.
No, it makes perfect sense, man.
Yeah.
You do the prep work at the beginning, understand who your customer is right from the start, and then you kind of plan accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think that the deeper you dive in the beginning of that relationship is going to be a better experience on the user side because it's all about that onboarding experience, right? And so you have to make sure that um, the customer perception of the brand, lead to that immediate decision. And are they meeting my expectations almost right away, right? And so we want to dive as deep as we can. We want to know as much as we can what their value props are, what makes them unique, and then what are those very specific challenges that they're trying to solve, and that, I mean, obviously they signed a contract. They believe that now ModelMatch can help solve.
Right.
How do we just focus on those? Let's get those solved, at least progress on that, get those micro wins, and then we can start building out the bigger picture.
Curious, the guy who I met at 17 in the stuffing envelopes is not the guy I'm talking to today. Where did you get this knowledge? Is it all from just your mentors and just on the job training? Did you take courses? Did you read books? Where did you kind of get your philosophy on customer success? It's so well thought out, so on the mark in so many ways.
I have to go back to what we were doing at Deltel on the phone, because we were a support team. We were customer service. Right. But no one spoke the words customer success back then. I don't think they didn't really exist, right? But our conversations we were fielding inbound calls. We were making outbound calls for other reasons, but the majority of our calls were very hands-on in terms of walkthroughs and understanding what they were trying to do. And then this is how you can utilize this for that, right? And I think over time, I began to look back on those experiences, look back on those conversations, and say to myself, nonetheless, this is what you've sort of been doing. You've had this, experience this whole time. And now how do you build upon that? And it's listening to guys like Bob Huff. It's listening to and watching, the way that Kirk operates and how he goes from start to finish, right, on a project. And then taking so many conversations that I've had over the years and just building upon all of that. And then, of course, the plethora now of customer success information and knowledge that's shared is unbelievable, right? How much knowledge there is out there, and how much I would say out of most communities in terms of customer success or marketing or product or operations, even across the board, customer success has to be one of the most open communities in terms of knowledge share. It's crazy. It's crazy how much info there is out there, for sure.
Absolutely. What do you love about it? What keeps you so interested in it and so passionate about it?
I think I know. I think again, you know, I am a people person. I love talking to people. Um, I love hearing people's stories. I love understanding what people are trying to accomplish, and especially on the software side. You know, I mean, I grew up on a computer, um, and so I get to be on a computer now all day.
Yeah.
So I just love working through those problems, and hearing people's stories, and then trying to figure out, okay, how can we now help on that, right? How can we not only help that user or that account solve that particular problem, but then how can we help them grow and grow within our platform? I mean, that's the end all be all for me. You know?
Tom, thank you so much, bro. It was great listening to your story, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely, buddy. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's